What's up, everyone? This is Nerdtooine from Nerdtooine and Movie Podcast. Hope everyone's having a great day. I do a multi-fandom content channel where I do, everything from comic books, movie reviews, to today, wrestling. I'm a huge fan of wrestling. Been a fan of wrestling since I was a kid. It just something about it always just spoke to me. It was just really awesome entertainment value. So today I actually watched my first ever um, Royal Rumble live, and while it was very entertaining, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I think the WWE has some problems, which we'll get into in a little bit. I'm not going to break down the matches. I'm going to talk about a few specific scenarios that happened, and give my take. And we'll definitely talk about how the show ended. Man, uh, to start it off, again, I love wrestling. So anything I might say might come across as I'm talking shit or I didn't like it. Because again, I've said this last week. There's a difference between liking something and great content. Not saying that this wasn't great, but it was very predictable. I mean, there was not a single outcome or even situation that happened besides a few like surprise appearances. Everything went as exactly as you would think it would. I mean, there was zero doubt that Cody Rhodes was winning the men's Royal Rumble. There was zero doubt that Rhea Ripley was winning the women's Royal Rumble. There was no chance Kevin Owens was going to beat Roman Reigns. You know, Bray Wyatt, of course, was going to win the Pitch Black match. There was. I mean, there's just so many things that happen that you watch and you go, obviously. Um, and especially, well, so we'll get to this more at the end. Especially the way they handled the ending of the final match. I think with the way the storyline had been built up, it was a very almost anticlimactic and predictable ending. And I think that was something that the WWE seemed to lean heavy on. Um, and I've seen a lot of people talking about how everything was phenomenal, and I don't agree. It was very entertaining, no question about that. Probably one of the most entertaining Royal Rumbles that I've ever watched, but knowing the storylines made it very predictable. Now, I'm in a very interesting boat because I've always watched the Royal Rumbles after the fact. I never watched them live. I didn't have my family wasn't super loaded to the point where we could watch pay-per-view events every few months. Like that's not something that I got to do as a kid. And now with Peacock having all the pay-per-view events on there, I get to watch them live. And this was the first Royal Rumble that I got to watch live, and I think knowing a lot of the storylines made a lot of things that happened not as impressive to me because I saw it. And then it could be just me being the type of person I am where I see the storylines, I see the writing on the wall, I can figure those things out as I do for most content. But I like when it comes to the winners of the Royal Rumble, there was no doubt who was winning both ever. Like, and especially booking Cody to come out at number 30. I mean, while every moment he was in there was electric. And I don't know, maybe it's because he, isn't physically ready to go that long of a distance. I'm not sure. I can't speak on that. I don't know. Um, but let's give it up to a couple standouts like Gunther, breaking Rey Mysterio's record for the longest time in a Royal Rumble and almost going coast to coast. And here's part of that problem with the booking. You have Gunther booked to be this monster of monsters, and he goes from start to finish. And then you have Cody Rhodes beat him, who has only been in the match for a couple minutes. Like it was obvious that was going to happen, so there was no stakes there. Like, and I think that was part of the problem with this entire pay-per-view event because again, we'll just keep going through. It's just very predictable. Um, but Gunther, he came out looking like one of the most unstoppable forces in the WWE today, and it's good that he did get that because he is fantastic. The Ring General is absolutely fantastic in the ring, and he deserves all the credit in the world for doing what he did. I mean, going from, like I said, start to finish, almost winning. If it was anyone else besides Cody, like, let's say if Cody wasn't medically cleared to, like, at the last second, they're like, no, you know what? No, you're not healthy enough. You can't do it. Gunther would have won the Royal Rumble, and deservingly so. I mean, and there's a few other things I want to talk about in the men's Royal Rumble. What happened to Rey Mysterio? Like, we didn't get any information, no background. Like, his son just comes out with the very next spot wearing his mask, and then like rips it up and then goes in, and then they never mentioned it again. Like, there was never a wonder where Ray is, or I get, once that happened, it was over. And I want to know what happened to Ray. I kept thinking that Ray was gonna come back out and like whoop up on the Judgment Day. I kept expecting that, and then it just didn't happen. And I'm wondering if maybe he got hurt. Like, how they do the walkthroughs and they try things out. They train in the morning. Maybe he got hurt at workouts and they just didn't have anyone to replace him. They just were like, okay, we'll just do this storyline. And I think what they're doing with Dominic Mysterio is going to end up ruining that kid's career. I don't think he's a fit as a heel. He just doesn't. He doesn't do it. Like, there's no part of him that is a heel, and I think it's clear that. So I again, that's a story for another day. But then let's talk about Logan Paul. Now, Logan Paul, when he came in, there was even a spot in the match where you can hear, I'm pretty sure it was Strowman saying, "You don't belong here." I'm sorry. He sure as hell does. I'm not a fan of Logan Paul. I've said that numerous times. I do respect him for what he's been able to accomplish, because it's amazing. Like, he's done so much, and then to come into WWE and have arguably 3 of the best starting matches of anyone's career, and then to show out like he did in the Royal Rumble this year, like that spot with him and Ricochet, I'd never seen anything like that. Like, we're talking about how this is one of the most entertaining Royal Rumble pay-per-views of all time. Oh yeah. Like, that moment, it was like an anime, a manga. Like, literally, they just jumped at each other and they just hit and just fell. Like, that was unbelievable. I've never in my life seen anything like that. And I gotta give props. Absolutely nothing but props, because Ricochet is one of the most gifted athletes in the WWE, especially when it comes to high flying. So to be able to match that, like that jump, like they had to match that height, the everything had to match perfectly for them to collide in the middle of the ring like they did. It was beautiful, absolutely stunning. I can't say enough about how impressed I have been with Logan Paul. He's and I know that whole part with Strowman was saying like, yeah, you don't belong here. I'm sure that maybe it could have been a little bit of it was based off of truth, but most of it was probably more part of the bit, trying to sell that they don't like him, even though I'm sure they all respect the hell out of him. Because I mean, I've said that I don't think he deserved a title shot at Crown Jewel, but did he ever put on a show? That was that I believed that there was a chance that Logan Paul was going to beat Roman Reigns. It didn't make sense logistically or any of that stuff, but I there were 3 or 4 points in that match where I was like, yeah, he's going to win it. Holy shit, they're going to let him win it. I mean, he'll probably lose it the next night or so, or he'll relinquish something, but like, damn, it might actually happen. Like with the KO and Roman Reigns fight tonight, I mean, absolutely zero chance, no matter what KO did, he was going to come out on top. It was impossible. It just wasn't going to happen. Simple as that. And that's because of the booking of Roman Reigns. They've booked Roman Reigns to be unstoppable, and it's hurting a lot of things. I mean, they have this vision of him as this like he is a moneymaker. Don't I mean it's the sales sell itself, and that's the money talks. And yes, he is a draw, and yes, he does bring in millions and millions and maybe even billions. Who knows? When it comes to merchandise and selling out tickets and stuff like that, but there's never like any intrigue to any type of main event that he's in because he's gonna win. Simple as that. Now, I do know that there are rumors that they're talking about splitting the titles up, maybe having him lose one or both at WrestleMania. It would be very smart to do so. What will probably happen is Monday night on Raw, because I believe that's where Cody is. He's been gone for so long. I can't remember what brand he's actually on. But the next time he gets a chance to get in front of a mic, he's going to say, I am challenging Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship. And I know I'm not the first person to say this. I'm not trying to say, like, I came up with this theory. But I mean, this is what's going to happen. He's going to come out and say, I am challenging Roman Reigns for the WWE Championship and the WWE Championship alone. I don't want the Universal Championship. I want the belt that escaped my dad. I want the belt that I can put around the American Dream's waist because I could not give it to to put it around. I couldn't give it to the American Dream, so I'm going to put it around the waist of the American Nightmare. Like that. That's what's going to happen, and he's going to beat him, and that's going to be great. And I think we saw, and we'll talk about this again at the end when we talk about the whole thing after the KO match. We were starting to see the bloodline and like the Usos possibly splitting, and might be for the best. For very similar reasons I talk about with Roman Reigns. But let's talk about the Pitch Black match. I am drinking a Mountain Dew Pitch Black right now. Not a paid sponsorship. I just love it. I'm glad they brought it back. Oh, hey, Mountain Dew. If somehow you ever hear this, bring back Mountain Dew Livewire, please. Please, I'm begging you. I've missed it. That was like the best summer of my life. And I would do almost anything to have some Livewire back in my life. Just saying. But I digress. So when we look at the Pitch Black match, now the match itself was whatever. I mean, again, zero chance LA Knight was beating Bray Wyatt in his first match back in a match with it was basically hyped up as a dark match. It was more like a glow light match, and it was cool as hell. Like that was talk about like again something I've never seen before. I really liked it, and when he came out with all of the the ink on his skin, and the ultraviolet, it looked so cool. I had nothing but respect for that match. Again, what was whatever. And then the post match with the Uncle Howdy and then the Firefly Funhouse, full like people puppets were there. That was really interesting. I'm very curious to see where they go with this. I was always a big fan of Bray Wyatt's. I think his ability, being such a big man. Like he's not light, but he moves around like he is. Like the way he does, like very much like KO with his like doing like freaking flips and sentons and stuff. And you're like 300 pounds. How are you doing this? Like there are like people like The Miz, who is a great wrestler in his own right. I'm not talking shit about The Miz. Very technically sound, amazing. I like him a lot actually. But you wouldn't see someone like him doing a senton, and he has the build, the body for it. But then you see people like Bray Wyatt and KO, 300 pounds. Like, yeah, that's gonna hurt. And that's another little sidebar here about I know people like, oh, it's this, it's that, it's not real. Blah, blah. Okay, yeah, it's scripted. And as we'll talk about tonight, or I guess you'll be watching this today because it drops on Sundays. I'm doing this right after the Royal Rumble ended, and I watched the post presser, which I never did before, which was really cool. I like that. But when it comes to these people saying that, oh, it's fake, oh, it's this, it's not fake. Okay. Like these people do like insane things that you and me could never do. I mean, of course, one of my dreams is to get like so popular, like almost the Logan Paul route, um, to get into a Royal Rumble. I don't care if I am out in 2 seconds just so I don't hold the record. Like I'll take the record for quickest time in the shortest time in the Royal Rumble. I'm just saying I don't need like a record. I just want to be there. I want to run down that ramp. I want to run up. And I always want to get choke slammed by the Undertaker. I don't care who it is. Someone choke slam me through the mat. Like that's all I want. Like I wanted to take that bump since I was a kid. I don't want to win. I couldn't win. There's no way. I'm 5'2", chubby with bad knees. Ain't no chance. But I can take a bump. I might not be able to walk. You might have to like throw me over and then call the stretches out to get me up the ramp. But I mean, I could take a bump, and I would love to take a choke slam. That's something I've always wanted that. But I digress. These people are physically peak athletes. Like look at people like Bobby Lashley. Look at people like Brock Lesnar or even Roman Reigns. You know, these guys are in the gym 24/7, 365, and they are just like monster of athletes. And to say that it's fake it's bullshit. You know, I mean, they never once claim that this is like it's sports entertainment. It's not like a real sport. You want to talk about or sporting, like it's not a sport. Sure, it is entertainment. That's why it's the World Wrestling Entertainment. That's why they call like that. That's exactly reason why. Yes, it has to be scripted, because if it's not scripted, then nothing's going to make any sense. You think I'm complaining now with it being this scripted? If it wasn't scripted at all, I'd be losing my mind. No one be watching it. That's just simple as that. I mean, and I do really hate when people do that. Like, oh, it's fake. Oh, it's it. You know what? You can kiss my ass. You couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for more than a bump. Like, I got one bump in me. I had someone talk about playing basketball the other day. I was like, you know what, man? I'm like Bill Murray in Space Jam. I've got one more pass in these knees before they fall off. um, excuse me, but you know, it's tough when people talk down about things you love so much. Like the entertainment value here is undeniable, and anyone who hides behind the oh well it's fake shield, then I don't respect your opinion. I don't really care what you got to say about wrestling. But back to the Royal Rumble. And then again, now we'll move on to the women's Royal Rumble. I mean, come on. There was no Rhea Ripley was 100% winning that. Now I'll say this. They did do a much better job booking Rhea Ripley's win than they did Cody Rhodes. And again, that might have been what I talked about earlier when you look at like maybe he just wasn't physically ready to go the distance like that. That's something you could legitimately say, and you can't fault them for not risking someone as loved and talented and important to their storylines moving forward as Cody Rhodes. So I get that. But man, when you talk about a physical force, I want her to not only win one of the championships, the women's titles, I want her to go after the Intercontinental. I want her to go after the WWE Championship. I feel like Rhea Ripley can compete and look legitimately fearsome and believable against anyone, anywhere. She's unbelievable. Rhea Ripley is, and I said this from, I mean, I didn't film any of the content, obviously, but I've said since the moment I saw her, she's something else. Like, she is the next level. Like, the power, the charisma, everything she has, you can't teach. It's just her. And it's just chef's kiss. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And you got to give it up to Liv Morgan as well. A lot of people talk bad about Liv Morgan, and another one of my favorite wrestlers. I think she is fantastic. She has the ability to I think she can play both a heel and a babyface better than almost anyone. She is a little crazy, but in the good way for this. Like I really feel like they set her up very well to be a main event contender still. Because after she won the title from Ronda Rousey and then lost it, um, a lot of fans and critics were like, "Oh, look, here we go. You've wasted Liv Morgan again." Someone that the fans obviously love. Um, they did a much better job, in my opinion, booking the women's Royal Rumble. I don't know. Maybe that's because, and again, that could be because the field's wide open. They actually said it in the post presser. Cody doesn't have to think about who he's wrestling. It's Roman Reigns. He's the unified champion. Rhea actually has to make a decision. Do I want to go up against the SmackDown or the Raw Women's Champion? And maybe that's why they were able to book the women's Royal Rumble better. And I'll say this. There are a lot of really, really talented women in the WWE, all the way from obviously WWE down to down to NXT. I mean, the NXT girls came in, they showed out. They I mean, yo, I was really impressed. Um, and great to see Asuka back. Not like they did so well booking almost all of my favorite people. Like Asuka looked like a problem again. There was a point where no one wanted to face Asuka. There was a point where Asuka was the most scary wrestler, man or female, in the WWE. And then it kind of went downhill, and she was too nice and too bubbly. A heel turn's coming, and she was epic in this. And there were a couple surprise entries. I was surprised that there wasn't another like legend that showed up. Like you didn't get there was no like Trish Stratus or Lita or any of those. I mean, you got Michelle McCool, which was weird because she was like in the stands with her kids and then just hopped over, and like that was a little weird. But then Nia Jax coming back. All right, now that was something I never would have thought. If I had a million guesses, I would not have guessed Nia Jax coming back, especially how the ending of the whole relationship of her being the WWE before. I would never predicted that, which was good. That was nice. And it was nice that the whole field again teamed up and got her out. They had some very impressive moments. I thought it was really funny. Oh man, how did I not open with this? Pat McAfee. We're gonna get to that in a second. I thought it was funny that there was a couple wrestlers that's names changed since last time we saw him. Like Dewdrop was not Dewdrop anymore. It was her name. And the commentators were like joking about like, yes, do you see what she did there with the drops? Like sitting there, and it was Pat McAfee. And the reason why I'm shocked I didn't mention it, Pat McAfee, he'll never see this. I hope he does, but Pat McAfee is the best commentator since Jim Ross. Like, for the love of God, he's got a family. Since that. His color commentary is next level, and he was rusty. Like he didn't know like what was going on really, so he couldn't really add his little extra spice. But man, he just brings a entirely fresh and just absolutely like almost hard-nosed, and I think that is sorely missed in a lot of commentators. And then that's partially because for many years you had to tote the line. You couldn't say this, couldn't say that, and whether he did or not, Pat just comes off as the kind of guy that'd be like, we can't say wrestlers, so I'm gonna say wrestlers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is about Pat. He is just when I was so hyped when I saw him come out. I instantly thought to myself, this is going to be a good Rumble. The second he showed up, I was like, yep, okay, I'm in. I like this. Let's go. And I'm very, very thankful he was there for this. He was phenomenal as always. But back to the Women's Royal Rumble again. Like I said, we knew Rhea Ripley was going to win, and that it just seemed all too predictable. Like there was not a single moment of this pay-per-view where I was like surprised in the outcome. Like, surprise appearances. Yeah, Corey got me. You got me there. Congratulations. Again, that was great. They were good. I'm not complaining at all about that. I truly enjoyed the show. But then when you get to the KO, and I know I'm forgetting about the Bianca. I'm not mentioning the Bianca Belair. And wow, 5 Feet of Fury. I am drawing a blank at her name right now, and I'm sure I'm gonna get hate for not being able to remember that. But I usually script everything, but since this is a live event, I literally just watched the presser, and hopped on. So forgive me. But Alexa Bliss, there we go. You know, that match again, you knew that Bianca was going to win. There was no way. And then to have that little extra stuff at the end, it's building the story. I get it. But again, we knew it was going to happen. And then you look at, the KO and Roman Reigns. Great match. Fun, entertaining match. But you knew that Roman wasn't going to lose. And you knew that KO was going to get his ass whooped after. And I even made a video. I did it I recorded it live, and I'm sitting here going, okay, this was about to happen. And exactly as I said it was going to happen. They booked that a little weird because obviously, there was a point where KO had him pinned. The ref was knocked out, and the crowd 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's when Roman says, get a chair to Sammy, and he hesitates or whatever. So, which led to that being not used at all in the match, and just KO getting beat cleanly, clean. Well, I mean, he did hit him with the low blow, but pretty much clean. And then they proceeded with the beatdown. Now, what they should have done, and this is how they should have played this. And I know I'm not the WWE writer, and I know I'm not in a lot of wrestling, rooms, so my opinion might not mean dick. But I'm still going to say it anyways, because this is my podcast, and I can do that. They should have had Sammy getting Roman disqualified. Roman loses, does not lose the belts, and then you have a reason for that beatdown, and a reason for Sammy to have to beat down KO and prove himself. That changes the whole motivation of that little encounter to, instead of him just stepping in and being almost coming off as soft, all right, you beat him up enough. This is beneath you. Don't do this. And then having the whole thing, hitting with the chair and having the turn happen and the beatdown. It didn't feel organic. It felt scripted. And if you would have done it where he cost him the match, but obviously it would, champion's advantage, you don't lose the title from a DQ. It would have just made more sense, and it would have and as good a story as they have been telling. This is because this storyline with Sami Zayn has been some of the best content WWE's ever done. This story has been impeccable. They have built Sammy, who is one of the most talented wrestlers and has been for quite some time. On both the mic, he is a chameleon. He's able to literally adapt himself to any storyline, and he deserves all the shine he's getting now. I mean, you can look back to when he was literally Nakamura's coach almost, and he killed it. And now here we are. They had this great storyline this whole time, built it up to this, and instead of, they're talking about this is going to be his last test. Give him a real test then. Not beat the dude down that he just watched you. Like, how many kicks did they hit KO with? How many super kicks? It was like 8. Finished with a double super kick. He comes off as weak here instead of almost not doing the right thing. Like, if it was because he cost the match and then he decided to do it, he looked strong for doing the right thing. He waited too long. So at the same time of it being this great turn and this great almost storytelling element, it falls a little flat for me. I mean, and not to say that it wasn't still entertaining, because it was. But again, as I said, I literally called the play-by-play before it happened. I was like, oh, here we go. They beating him down. Roman's going to give the chair to Sammy. Sammy's not going to hit him. And then they go beat him down. And they're going to leave him and KO in the ring. Now, I will say this. Jay walking out and like crying on his way up the ramp, that was beautiful. That added so much depth to that whole scene. And it sets up, that's what we were talking about earlier, sets up maybe the Usos forfeit the titles because Jay no longer wants to be with the bloodline. Jay no longer wants to be part of it with his brother. And then it will lead Jay to having a solo run, which he honestly should have had 3 years ago. And if they don't want either KO or Sammy to take the belt, one of the belts off him, or I mean, obviously they better have Cody. If Cody comes back, wins the Royal Rumble, and then doesn't win the WWE Championship, what was the fucking point? What was the point? What was the point? So obviously that's going to happen. And there's nothing wrong with, knowing the end of the story, because the whole, the all the chapters in between that end where you are right now and that ending have to happen for the ending to happen. So I'm not saying anything's bad necessarily, or the, the WWE's in shambles. No. I'm just saying that I feel like they have a lot of great people working on this development of these stories, and they need to make it a little less carbon copy. Like, what I mean by that is, you look at these events and there are similar beats in each one. And I think with this one, it was just too easy. Like, I could have literally turned on the men's Royal Rumble, turned the shit off, turned it on within 2 seconds of the last 10 minutes, and I would have missed nothing. I mean, the only thing I would have missed really was all these big dudes whooping up on each other, which was great, which was absolutely fun. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. It was cool. It was a very entertaining. But I mean, it was. And I'll say this, I've never seen a one-on-one match to end a Royal Rumble like that. Like, Cody and Gunther went at it for a good 5 minutes, I think it was. I've never seen that before like that. I feel like that was longer than usual. And I don't know if that was to, show Gunther off, show Cody off. I'm not sure what it was, but I think it was the right move, for the record. And then when you and again, the Rhea Ripley, there were a couple points where you thought she was going to be out. They did a very good job of concealing the fact that she was going to win. But look at it this way. Number one made it to the end in both Royal Rumbles. That usually never happens. Number two went hella far and almost won too. And then somewhere in the 20s and 30s, like towards the end, middle to end, you bring in the third wheel to either win or to just make it more difficult. They were very similarly plotted out in that regard. But there was far more intrigue in the women's Royal Rumble than there was in the men's. Overall, like I said, very, very entertaining pay-per-view. I will say that I think that um, War Games, Survivor Series War Games was 10 times better. And I could, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people who disagree with me on that, but I didn't know how all of that was gonna play out. There was multiple different spots in the previous pay-per-views. Again, you can go all the way back to Crown Jewel. There were moments when I thought Logan Paul was going to actually beat Roman Reigns. Kevin Owens is a far superior and veteran wrestler and should have the chance to beat Roman Reigns, and I didn't buy it for 2 seconds, not even 2 seconds. Not even 2 seconds. And then against him as a talent, he's going against Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is going to win. And like I said, so they with the booking, they do got a problem. They do got a problem, and I it's not really too hard to fix, but all in all, I definitely think if it continues, and I'll say this, it is on a streaming platform now, so I mean, anyone who watches The Office or Parks and Recs have access to these now. You know what I mean? Those are big fandoms. So it's a little bit different now. I don't know if we can even judge it off previous streaming premium live events, as they call them. But all in all, I was a very I did have a very good time watching it live. This was my first Royal Rumble live. I don't know if I will watch the next one live, only because again, it was just too easy for me to see what was going on. I love watching the Royal Rumbles because you never know who's going to show up. You never know who's going to win. This year, I knew. Like, besides the surprise entrance, I mean, we knew who was going to win both. And they're deserving. Not to take anything away from Cody Rhodes or Rhea Ripley, two of my all-time favorite wrestlers, two of the most talented and most deserving, most like you just keep going down the list of their accolades of why they deserve these spots. I'm not saying anything against them for that, because I mean, if it wasn't for an injury, Rhea Ripley very well would have already been like main event championship level still. You know what I mean? Like, she had all of these shot lined up, and I'm glad to see it finally come to fruition for her because she deserves every bit of it. Mommy is just peak awesomeness, and I can't speak enough about how much I love her in the Judgment Day. And that's I figure that like people be like, oh, he just doesn't like the Judgment Day, bagging on Dom. Dom is a very talented wrestler, and he's got the lineage. He's got all of that. They're trying to make him Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie just did it organically. Like, you didn't have to send Eddie to the clink and get a fake freaking tear tattoo when you were in the county jail for freaking 20 minutes to believe that he's gonna lie, cheat, and steal. Latino Heat came on. You knew he was gonna do whatever he had to do just because he was Latino Heat, because he was Eddie Guerrero. That's not what we see when we're looking at Dom. We're looking at a whiny little bitch that needs to get his ass kicked. And that's sad because he should be so much more. Should be. Absolutely. Maybe he will be in the future, but right now, I think there's nothing wrong with the Judgment Day, but I really think Dom should be kicked out. Hey, the Bloodline just kicked out Sami Zayn and lost Jay. So who knows? And before I go, there's one more thing I want to just state. And this goes back to Roman Reigns and why it's time to take one or both of his titles away. he's reduced Paul Heyman to a withering little advisor. Paul Heyman is one of the most influential and one of the best minds and overall presentation, all of it in wrestling history. What he was able to do with ECW, and then as he's literally progressed through and got to WWE now, I mean, look at what he's been able to accomplish. I mean, he's the guy that would introduce Brock Lesnar. Now he's like, oh, my tribal chief, 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 my tribal chief. And I'm over it. I, I don't know what needs to happen, but it's time to give Paul Heyman his balls back because I miss Paul Heyman. I am so done with the wise man. And again, nothing against Paul Heyman, obviously. One of my favorite people in the industry. But yeah, it's time for this whole blood. Like, I understand they see all this money the bloodline's bringing in, but it's time. It's time to split the bloodline. And I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but I don't care. Listen, brother, there's one thing I know, and that is that you have to speak your mind and you can't let other people influence what you say. So it's time to end the bloodline, says the Macho Man Randy Savage. It's really not him. But until next time, everyone, thanks for stopping by. If you like what you heard, like, share, follow, tell everyone, multi-fandom content, new episodes every week.